Hello and good evening. Namaste to everyone. Welcome to the world's largest lesson delivered on the history of education hosted by Educlouds. My name is Parj Garg and I'm the founder and CEO of Educlouds India and UK. Today, I'll be hosting the event, so I'll be your host for the evening. Thank you so much for joining the event. We really appreciate your constant support in contributing towards the success of Educlouds. Today, being the National Independence Day, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy Independence Day. And I thank all the people again for coming and watching the event. Before we go ahead, I'd like to tell you a bit about Educlouds and what we do. It's not going to be promotional, don't worry about it. Educlouds is the world's first company which is 100% digital and is operating at a capacity where it has reached to 37 countries in less than 8 months. We are a family of 12,000 educationists. Yes, we are a family of 12,000 educationists connected across digitally on a very simple platform, which is WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of these. As a company, we have developed the world's first and the world's only technology, which is compatible enough to run any school online, which means that I will be telling you a bit about the technology at the end. Don't worry, Educlouds is based on the traditional education system, meaning it's 100% free. We've organized almost 150 workshops in less than 8 months. All of these workshops, all of these webinars, 100% free of cost. We've also partnered with the tech giant, Google. Yes, Google is our education partner in the country. We've organized multiple webinars, multiple award functions, multiple events, but this event is completely different. We've actually hosted another world record as well. On the 7th of February, we created a world record. We got featured in the gold edition of World Book of Records. And the world record was for the world's largest gathering on digital education. We were fortunate enough to get a comment from the education minister of our country. So that's how fast we are growing as a company. We invite you and we congratulate you for becoming an official participant at the Educlouds World Record 2021, which is for the world's largest lesson delivered on the history of education. This event is going to be completely different. Yeah, I say that a lot, but yes, it is going to be different. Don't worry. This event is going to be completely different because we're not going to talk about the common topics. We're not going to talk about the subjects that people normally talk about. We're not going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about education and the history of education itself. We're going to talk about the profound indigenous education system of a country and the world as well. We'll talk about how the education system evolved over the years, what reforms actually came in the education system, and how the Indian education system was changed and edited and evolving over the years. For the same, we have many different panelists joining us from across the globe and a very special guest speaker. I request all the panelists to join us on the virtual stage and do a quick wave to the audience. Please, Manjari, have the panelists on screen. Hello there, everyone. So all the panelists are joining now. Great.
Namaste.
So these panelists will be joining you all shortly after a discussion when I have with a guest speaker. So thank you so much, and we'll be coming back to you shortly. Thank you. So with this, let me welcome our guest speaker for the event. Our guest speaker spends his days penning down the truth and bringing it to the new informed world. He's a hardcore nationalist and is amongst the most fair and the unbiased journalists and authors in our country. Some of his famous books were Gallantry and Tradition, A Capitalist Phenomenon, A Political History of Delhi, are based on the history of India and have received both critical and commercial acclaim. His work speaks for himself. A Handbook of Indian Media, an essay written by him, was published in the Oxford University Press and was critically acclaimed by different people across the globe. Sir, you have truly proved that the pen is much mightier than the sword. But wait, there's more to his many achievements. His book, Sir, actually, there's a background noise. Could you please fix the microphone? Yes, thank you. His book titled Processing News was published by the National Book Trust of India and is a critical analysis of the evolution of journalism and mass communication. For his reporting duties, he has traveled to many countries, including the Gulf, Africa, Afghanistan, Ireland, and many, many more. He has given lectures and talks at the Indian Military Academy, Delhi School of Economics, Indian Institute of Mass Communication, and several leading universities and colleges across the globe. He has a very popular weekly column, which is published in Reporter's Notebook, and he regularly writes in the Indian Express and News 18. In 2011, he also started a think tank. Yes, he does quite a lot of things. He started a think tank called the Center for Reforms, Development and Justice at New Delhi. The center publishes a high-value academic journal called The Discussant. Through the think tank, he has edited, published important volumes like Company to Crown, Essays on Colonialism, and Delhi Political 1947, 2011, 2013, and Oral History. He's currently the adjunct professor and chairperson for Vivekananda Institute of Mass Communication, which is ranked at 4th amongst emerging journalism and mass communication colleges in Delhi. Under his guidance, he has recently introduced a postgraduate diploma in digital content creation and communication in 4 different 6-month certification courses. We welcome renowned professor, author, educationist, and journalist, Professor Siddharth Mishra, to the virtual stage.
Thank you, Sparsh. Thank you so much for a very detailed introduction of mine. I really don't deserve it. I'm just a pen pusher and a storyteller, nothing more than that.
That's your humbleness, sir. I'll definitely say that. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'll brief you about the event and also brief you about what is the world record in general, okay? So The world record is being made with the World Book of Records, London, which is amongst the most prestigious record books in the world. The record book has been recognized by our PM, Narendra Modi itself, and has been promoted across by many national and international celebrities around the world. The World Book of Records has different editions. Last time we applied for the gold edition. This time, since it's a national event, we're going to talk about in the Indian edition of the World Book of Records. Today, we'll be having this event, and this stream will be further streamed across different schools and colleges in the next 24 hours, because every different school is in different time zones. We have guests coming in from 37 countries. Last time we had people coming in from 47 countries, but this time a lot of countries have got summer vacations going on. So we have 37 countries joining in today and different schools from these countries joining in. So thank you so much again for joining us and gracing us for the event. I'd like to tell the guests about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the education system of India and the world in general. We'll start off by the most ancient education system currently known to the world, which is the traditional Vedic system. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir. Today's discussion is going to be between a student, because I'm currently studying as a bachelor's degree at Northumbria University, England. So today's discussion will be between a student and a professor, which is world-renowned. So I'll throw in some questions at you. Please let me know if you have any comments before we go ahead. Any comments, sir, before we start?
No, you can, please.
Okay, we'll start. Okay, so in the ancient times, it has been clearly documented that our education system dates back to more than 20,000 years back. So please tell the audience about the traditional Vedic education system and how the education was actually taught during those times. We'll actually discuss this and we'll slowly move on to the current century. So please tell the audience about the traditional Vedic education system of a country.
Thanks, Parsh. It would be incorrect to say that the Vedic system is the oldest system in our country.
Okay.
Education predates the Vedic system. We had the Harappan culture, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, the famous sites. And although there are no evidences, and mind you, these are based on archaeological evidences and facts. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa did exist. It is not part of any mythology.
Oh, yes, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. So they did exist, and there have been excavations. There has not been any evidence of a school or a university as of now. But then there is but in Mohenjo-daro, we have found a big assembly hall in the excavations. And that assembly hall is suggestive of the fact that this may have been an auditorium of an academy or a lecture center. Number one. Number two, what else we have heard about Harappan culture could not have been possible without the culture having an education system. They had a very evolved trade system. They had an urban development plan. They had a governance system. Everything was in place. So the Indus Valley civilization, as some of us call it. So it would not have been possible without an education system in place.
True.
As of today, we have not had and Harappan script. The Harappan script is still to be deciphered. So whatever whatever scriptures or other the writing or the stone writing that we have of that period has not yet been revealed to us.
Right.
Whatever has been revealed to us has been through the archaeological evidences. So those archaeological evidences we have not yet really known what the text of Harappa has to tell us. But the archaeological evidences do tell us that there was a very evolved civilization at that point of time, and that evolved civilization could not have been possible without an education system. And we have one single evidence of an assembly hall in Mohenjo-daro. So, and there's a huge possibility that assembly hall was part of an academy or a lecture center or a school, something of that kind.
Correct.
So having said that, and you wanted to ask something?
Yes, I know this, but let the audience know how old is the Harappan system and how old is the Indian Indus Valley civilization.
You see, they are contemporaries of the River Valley civilizations are contemporaries of each other. The Mesopotamian culture, the Indus Valley culture, the Egyptian culture. It's not at the same time that you have the Egyptian pyramids, and that is the time. That is in that time, around that century.
In fact, there was this. Sorry to cut you off here. There was this another theory which I read online that before the Egyptian pyramids were there were some pyramids in India near Dwarka. Do you know about that?
Yeah, possibly, because Harappan culture we are still to know the limits of Harappan culture.
Exactly.
Because what increasing number of archaeological excavations and evidences are telling us that initially they were called Indus Valley, then Harappan culture, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa. But now they have been found in places like Dholavira, which is in Gujarat. Then there is Rakhi Gadi, which is in Uttar Pradesh. So we are still to really know the limits of the Harappan civilization. And there is also an evidence, there is also a study which says that, among the Santhal tribals of Jharkhand and West Bengal, they speak a dialect, they speak the same phonetic sounds and signs. The sign language that they use and the phonetic sounds which it has is similar to what was used in the Harappan culture. So that attempt has been made to decipher the Harappan script
culture
by connecting it with the sign language of the tribals in Jharkhand. So we are still to know that what was the limit of the Harappan civilization. But as you mentioned, Dwarka, yes, Harappan civilization was in Dwarka for sure. We have the Dholavira site there.
Exactly.
So anybody who has been a student of archaeology or history, it should not be very surprising to the person that pyramids have been seen there, or pyramid-like buildings have been seen there.
Exactly.
And another point that I want to make is, you see, whenever we talk about this archaeological monuments and this thing, it's not to be just seen in the terms of brick and mortar. It's also to be seen in the light of the cultural encapsulation it had. So you see, maybe the same bricks and same mortar would have been used for the so-called pyramid in Gujarat and the pyramids in Egypt.
Correct.
But culturally, what did they encapsulate? That is very important to study and read. And that's why history continues to be a very interesting subject. History is not only about dates. You know, in the school children and this thing, when they say that history is a very, very boring subject. No, history isn't a boring subject. It is for you to make it boring, and it is for you to make it interesting. If you
I say that it's the teacher that makes any subject boring or any subject interesting.
Absolutely.
I have had teachers which have ignited a fire in me to learn science, and I've had teachers which have brought me down so much in science that I've actually left science as a career. So it's about the teacher.
Yeah, teachers do have a role. Teachers do have a role. Teachers as mentors do have a role. But it's also your own initiative. You know,
definitely.
You can take a horse to the pond. The water
exactly.
Is the horse, you know. So
exactly. Also, there are a couple of theories which
now having talked about Harappan and Mohenjo-daro, and now I come to your question of Vedic education. Yes, Vedic education system is better documented, and Vedic education system is rather an education system which we have even renewed till date.
Correct.
You see, if you have ever followed Kumbh, the Kumbh celebration that we have in our country was in every 6 years, 12 years. So the akharas of the sadhus, the holy saints and the holy men, you know, like we have a monk who is a chief minister today in the country.
Yes.
Yogi Adityanath. So he comes from a Gurukul system.
Correct.
Gurukul. Guru means your guru, your teacher. And Kul is the teacher's family.
Family, yes.
So he comes from a Gurukul. So like in 21st century also, we are following the Vedic education system, Vedic way of life.
Right.
Not only education system, Vedic way of life.
Yeah.
And which was also the Vedic and in many Indian homes even today, we follow the Brahmanical traditions of giving the sacred thread to the child before, and before a child goes to a school, the Vidya Aram, starting the initiation into education. Vidya Aram. Vidya Aram.
Yes.
So these are traditions which we have followed from our Vedic times.
Yeah.
Vedic schools, as I said, the Vedic schools, the Gurukuls. The Gurukuls were about schools in residential schools.
Right. So today is a hostel.
Yeah. In today's terms, like residential school, like the school you went to and this kind of school I went to.
Yeah.
Residential school with no day scholars. We lived with the gurus, and the gurus only did not shape us for our our classroom teachings. Education means wholesome education. So in fact, I'm reminded of lines of Prince of Wales, Edward VIII, who later became King of England and then abdicated his crown for his love. That's another story to be told some other day. So when he came to inaugurate the Prince of Wales' Royal Indian Military College in Dehradun on 13 March 1922, he said to the Indian students that while you are going to be shaped by the traditions of the public schools of India, you should not forget your traditions, the Guru Chela, Guru Shishya tradition of the Indian Vedic system.
Correct.
So we in India, while we have adapted systems from here and there and home, we have retained the core of Vedic education system amid this. And there's a possibility that this Vedic system was inherited from Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Although there is still to get a connect to that, but there is a possibility. Yeah,
I see that information has been misunderstood over the years. That's how I see it, because the education system in those times were based to be completely free, right? People used to donate to temples. Temples used to fund the education for these gurukuls, and students used to give Guru Dakshina based on whatever their capacity was. And it wasn't compulsory at that point. So what do you feel that how we can bring this kind of system back, and what are the other facts which you like to bring to light?
No, if you are trying to say that the Vedic system was a completely egalitarian system, or the period just after the Vedic system,
that's a norm. Yeah, that's what we normally hear.
But I would not really agree to it, because you see, those who were entitled to education, and entitlement to education had many requirements, essential qualifications.
Like
the qualification of birth. You had to be born in certain caste.
Oh, yes.
Caste. That is the caste system, which would entitle you to education. And yes, if you were entitled to education, education for you was free. That's for sure. That's how Sudama started with Krishna. But not to forget, Sudama was a Brahmin and Krishna was a Kshatriya. But I don't really recall any Shudra being part of the Gurukul of Sandipni Rishi. Their Guru. Sandipni Rishi is Guru of Krishna and Sudama. So I don't really know of any Shudra being part of Sandipni Rishi's ashram. So to say that that system was completely egalitarian will not be correct. But whosoever was entitled to education, yes, for them, education was free and there was a lot of donations and this thing. So yes, that way they were subsidizing subsidies at that point of time, and there are subsidies at this point of time also.
Right. So when all of this was happening in the Indian subcontinent, what was happening in the European side? What was happening in the American side? Because I have heard theories which say that when Indian civilization, when the Indian subcontinent civilization was fully developed, the Europeans were still in the Stone Age. Are these theories correct?
You see, American culture is much later. It only comes in after Columbus.
Correct.
So let's not talk America. Yes, Europe must have had a culture. And you see, as I said, that culture at that point of time was more about what you call river systems. Right. And there is a theory, the Aryan theory, that some people went west, some people came east. And so they created a culture in the east and they created a culture in the west, in Europe especially. And there was indigenous people in other continents also. As there were indigenous people in America and Australia and Africa and all these places.
Right. So when you say
I am not very sure. I've not really read it anywhere. Although that's not maybe my area of work also. But anyway, whatever work I do, whatever studies I do, I really don't recall that, there is any article or any chapter of substance which talks about education system being that old in Europe. America, no question.
America, no question. That's off the books.
No question. So in Europe too, that old education system I don't recall. Probably the oldest of the European culture is the Greek civilization.
Yes.
The Greek civilization, the civilization of Homer and Iliad and Socrates.
Yes.
So that is the oldest, and I think they also come later than our Vedic civilization. So
way later.
Yeah. So
I'll say a very interesting fact which I read today itself. Everyone knows about Pythagoras, right? Pythagoras was initially from the European side, and he came to India. Would you like to shed some light on that? He actually came to India to learn about the Indian Vedic system and how Gurukul was formed. It's mathematics.
There has been, I do not know if there is this whole issue of online internet and WhatsApp universities. I believe not Pythagoras came to this country or did not come to this country. But yes, we had a very evolved system of mathematics. We had a very strong evolved system of trigonometry, geometry, and
Surya Siddhanta.
So we had this Aryabhat and Bhaskar and Mihir Bhatt, all these famous. So these are again documented. Documented, actually, mathematicians and planet studies and then all these people.
What I read was that
I would like to give you a very interesting story about how evolved was trigonometry.
Okay.
I don't know if you have heard about Prithviraj Chauhan, who lost to Muhammad Shah Ghori in 1192 and was taken prisoner to
captive,
taken prisoner to Tehran and where there is this story. There is this epic called Prithviraj Raso by Chandravardhai, the poet, who gives a detail about Prithviraj's life and times, and then towards the end he comes in how Prithviraj, despite having been blinded by Ghori, managed to kill Ghori. So the story goes like this: that Prithviraj, that Chandravardhai, who was with Prithviraj, he told Ghori that Prithviraj knew how to shoot a Shabd Bedi Baan. Shabda Vedi Ban is an arrow which can follow the sound.
Yes.
And there are instances of Shabda Vedi Ban in what you call in Ramayana, in Mahabharata.
Yes.
And then the third one is this. So he asked, Gori asked, what does that mean? He said, you put a what you call bell at a height, and you ring the bell, and my king will shoot an arrow at the bell.
All right.
So Gori agreed to that. The bell was hung next to his seat, his throne, and this thing. Then Chandrapardai said, चार बांस 24 गज अंगुल अष्ट प्रमाण ऐते पे सुल्तान है मच चुको चौहान. So,
all right.
चार बांस, bamboos,
the
height at which the sultan was sitting. 24 gaj, 24 yards, the distance at which sultan was sitting. Angul asht praman, that is 8 fingers height.
Okay.
And then he shot, and the sultan was killed. So now, if you put it into trigonometrical formula, what is this?
Right.
This is trigonometry. That you give the height, you give the distance, and then you shoot the arrow and it hits the target.
Exactly.
This trigonometry is also followed in artillery firing.
Yes. Didn't think of it that way. That's correct. Yeah.
So you see, history is a very interesting subject. Because again, you have to make it interesting. The teachers have to make it interesting. The writers, the deliverers have to make it interesting. So, sorry, we came in much forward in history. We came to 11th, 12th century. But
yes. No, we'll go back.
Yeah.
So my second question, which a lot of people have speculations about, is the world's first universities. Okay. So some say that the University of Bologna was the world's first university. But that actually came in the 10th century. That's way too ahead. We had universities in India, in the current Bihar, the current Pakistan, which was that time in the Indian subcontinent, which actually survived many invasions, but they still imparted a lot of knowledge. But at the end, they were completely destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed. So please tell the audience about what exactly happened to these universities, what was the culture followed, and do correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Now, I must tell you here, as we said, we had Gurukul system of education.
Correct.
And Gurukul system of education was to a few entitled by birth, right? And there was a large proletarian population which was not entitled to education.
Right.
So a time came when they, in any society, when one particular community or class becomes dominant, the other community and class, rallies around and says, no, they also demand their rights.
Right.
And the reform movement starts. So again, the Brahminical reform movements in the Gangetic plain area of our country, the Gangetic plain area where the state of current Bihar is and other such places.
Right.
The reform movement started by Gautam Buddha.
Okay.
Mahavira, Jain Mahavir. And there was a third fellow, the materialist called Ajita Kesh Kambli. Right.
Okay.
So, materialist. He said, what God and what piety and what spirituality. This is one life to you. You drink and eat and be happy about it. That was his theory. That's called another school of thought. But they were the school of thoughts by Gautam Buddha and Mahavira.
Right.
So now these school of thoughts came up as a counter to the Brahminical school, right?
Okay.
And so as a counter to the Gurukul education system, they created their own universities.
Oh, okay.
Right, they created their own university. So you would be wondering, why from a Gurukul system to the university system?
Exactly.
It was because of this. And so, be it Takshashila, which was in Peshawar, Pakistan, be it Nalanda, or be it Vikramshila. The three most
Vikramshila was very, very huge university, yes.
Yeah, so the three names that we talk about, they all were under the promotion and protection of Buddhist kings.
Okay.
Yeah, they all were under the promotion and protection of Buddhist things. So let that clarity be there. Yeah,
but I'll have a question here, very important.
And some of the more famous emperors of that time, who were not essentially, the Kshatriya as denoted in the Vedic system. They became protectors, like Kanishka, the famous king Kanishka, who protected Takshashila.
Takshashila, yes.
Then you had the Pala kings who looked after the
Bihar.
Yeah, and the Mauryas who looked after Nalanda.
Right.
And it was from here that it was here from these universities when you have the French travelers, the Hunsang and Faiyang and others coming in, and then from here it traveled to Buddhism traveled to China, to Tibet, to China, and to the countries of Far East and what is called Southeast Asia today. To these places they traveled to. Yes, and when these again then these community and they also did away with the Sanskrit language, the language of the Gurukuls.
Yes.
They evolved their own language called Prakrit.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was referring to when I wanted to say something.
And they also evolved their own language called Prakrit.
Yeah.
So
please tell the audience about Prakrit.
And then Sanskrit and Prakrit. But then again, there was again a movement of Sanatan Dharma, the own Brahminical Vedic religion led by Shankaracharya, which restored to a great extent the glory of the Vedic religion. Shankaracharya, as you all know, the great pontiff, and he created the Urmat, the debating skills, the Shastra arts, and this thing.
Yes.
And so that's how it has continued. So it is incorrect to say that we can't close bracket it that this period to this period was this. So even when universities were there did exist a Gurukul system.
Correct.
So
in fact,
and since these Gurukul systems were there, so even when these universities were burned down or they went into oblivion, and if I just not one Bakhtiyar Khilji, a Bakhtiyar Khilji can burn down a building. He cannot do away with the education system.
Correct.
The education system was done away with because there were not many takers for Buddhism. These were largely religious seminaries.
Correct.
Teachings of Buddhism, Mahayana, Hinayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism, which was taught in Vikramshila, and from where it traveled to what you call Tibet. In fact, the Buddhism which is followed in Tibet, the Dalai Lama's sect, has its origins in what you call in Vikramshila.
All right.
So that's how it has been. We have not had close bracketed, and so history always existed beyond the textbook, beyond the written word. So that's how it has been. Yeah.
I was saying that exactly your point, which you mentioned, that the education system was closely linked to religion, if I'm correct. Yeah, it was specifically made for certain people. It is specifically developed in such a way to impart knowledge as well as teachings about religion in general. So they used to teach about core important topics as well as teach about dharma, the core values about how take care of your parents, the right thing to do in life, and stuff like that. So after the universities were destroyed, these values did stay. But what about the information? Because I heard that 9 million books were destroyed in Nalanda and they burned for months and months. But what about the information? Were we able to recover that information in time?
Most of this information had traveled to China.
Yeah.
You see that we had the monks who had come here and stayed here and who had carried. So that's how that's how the Buddhist scriptures have survived. The Prakrit scriptures have survived in these countries.
Right.
So information is again one thing. Whether we are in the digital age or we were in that age, information is something which is there in the human mind, and you cannot really destroy the human mind.
Correct.
So, although there was loss of information, there was loss of books, and there was destruction of the university. But
I was saying that
again, one has to really look at it is still very unexplained that why would Because you see, the person who killed, who's supposed to have burned down, Nalanda, Bhakti Khilji.
Khilji,
Because Khilji, don't equate him with Khilji, the ruler of Delhi. He was just a small-time general, Bakhtiyar Khilji.
Yes,
the famous ruler of Delhi was Alauddin Khilji.
Alauddin Khilji, yes.
Alauddin Khilji. So this Bakhtiyar Khilji was a small-time general, and why would he burn down the university? Was it part of a local rebel, doctrines exercise, or was it part of the state policy? All these things remain to be explained, and to be gone after.
There is a recent study which actually has documented proof why the Nalanda University was burned down and what actually happened. I recently read it as well. So that actually talks about that there was this person, I'll tell you the exact name. He went to Khilji to treat one of his diseases, which no other hakims of his court could treat. When Khilji got to know that there's this person from the non-Muslim culture who knows how to treat this, he got absolutely furious. And that actually led in the long term to create hate and burn down the entire university. This is one of the theories which I have read.
I don't know what study you are quoting. I think Nalanda did not teach medicine for sure.
Oh, Nalanda did not teach medicine.
Yes. Nalanda was not a home to Ayurveda either. Yeah. Nalanda was not a home to Ayurveda. Nalanda did not teach medicine. Nalanda was all about rather studying in Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist literature. So the possibility of a Hakim or a Vaidya having come from Nalanda is very, very remote.
What I'm trying to say is that
because there is no document to say that Nalanda or Vikramshila or Takshashila ever taught medicine. Ayurveda was not really taught in this. Ayurveda was again more part of a Gurukul system where you had the Vads as gurus and you had residents, as we have residents here. Senior residents and junior residents hospital. So they were Vadashalas and they were residents in the Vadashalas who learned it from their gurus. So there is no proof of a university running a medical college or a medicinal school at especially Nalanda, Vikramshila, and Takshashila. These three for sure did not have a medicine school or a Ayurvedic school for that matter. Right.
Correct.
Yes.
I was just mentioning that that led to the anger which formulated the other events, which is just another theory.
Ill-founded theory, I would say.
Ill-founded theory.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. So coming to the next question, we'll talk about the introduction of the Macaulay system in India, the English Education Act, which actually came to India. And please tell the audience about what was the Macaulay system in general, what were the pros, what were the cons, and what was the English Education Act? What was the impact of this act towards the Indian education and the Indian progress?
You see, again, Macaulayan Act is not to be seen in isolation. It has to be seen in a context. Okay. So, why did the British come to India at all? My question is that, why would the British, small country, have living happily there, or for that matter, the Dutch, or the French, or the Spanish, would leave their country and travel, thousands and thousands of miles on difficult seas in craft and, putting their life at risk and come to India? Why would they do that?
Correct.
They did that because somewhere, and, they had what in the European history they call Dark Ages was followed by Age of Enlightenment, which followed, scientists like Galileo and such people, who came up with new discoveries about globe, about universe, and such places.
Yes.
And then it also gave technological advancement. The technology. So what we call in European context is the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
So when Industrial Revolution happened in Europe, the steam engine, the coming of the steam engine, James Watt, the steam engine. So the ability to produce increased several fold. So when your ability to produce went up, naturally you needed the raw material, number one, and number two, the market to sell the finished products.
Correct, yeah.
So that gave up with that came up the idea of imperialism and colonialism. As you see, as you have mentioned, there's a book of mine on it's called Coming to Crown, Essays in Colonialism and Imperialism. So that and so these countries, they started looking for the European nations. They started looking for one to source raw material which was there in Africa in plenty, which was there in America, which was there in Asia, and they also looked for market. But market they could only find in Asia because Asian continent having a very, very evolved civilization. We talked about Vedic and we talked about river valley civilizations. We talked about post civilization. So whole of Asia, not just India, but whole of Asia had a very, very evolved market. So that's how they came in here to sell their products in the market here. And so so first they came in here as traders, and then to capture markets, they started participating in politics. So and with them they brought in the technology also with them, the printing press. The most relevant to education was printing press.
Correct.
And when they came to this country and they took charge of this country sometime in 17, I'm forgetting the date, 1760, 1780 or something. They first brought the first book to be printed. The first press was set up near Calcutta, Shrirampo, and the first book to be published was an Nathaniel's Introduction to Bengali Grammar. Now, what was for whom was this book published? This book was published for the officers of East India Company, because now they were coming here to trade in India. They had to interact with people of India. They had to interact with the people of the continent. So it was very important for them to know and understand the language and the culture of the continent. Right?
Right.
So they understood our language, they understood our culture. And plus, it was a small country. They could not have transported, and the volume of business was huge. So they needed to recruit locally. So they started an education system which served their economic goals. So like the Calcutta Secretariat is still called, the West Bengal Secretariat in Calcutta is still called the Writers' Wing. Who were the writers? Writers were the writers, as in the writers in the East India Company or the British Parliament, the clerks. So it was the clerks building, just the old name is still remained, the Writers' Building.
Oh.
So, and it was part of that, but before Macaulay came in, we should remember that 1857, which was the year of revolution in our country, was also a revolution in the field of education. Because it was at this point of time that the three modern universities were set up. That's Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. And from there started the modern system of education in this country, the grading, the examination, the curriculum. And it was in course of introduction of that curriculum and grading that the Macaulay system came in. Macaulay system, let's be very, very clear, Macaulay system or whatever education system that the British were imparting was to serve their cause. It was to serve their cause. And personally, you ask me, I really cannot judge them for it, because we had failed to evolve technology the way the Europeans had evolved at that point. You see, if you read, there's a historical instance when Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last Mughal ruler, when he was arrested and he was taken away in 1857 from here. He went on a bullock cart. And when he reached Kanpur, he saw a steam engine. The train had started in this country in 1842 in Bombay to Thane, a steam engine. And then in Mirzapur, he was put on a steamer, a steam engine operated boat, and then taken to Rangoon. So while we were on the bullock cart, they were on the steam engine. They were way ahead of us technologically.
Correct.
The other story is that disunity amongst ourselves and lack of patriotism.
Right.
That's all there. That's all fact. Yes, there were those problems. But the greater problem was that they were technologically much more evolved than we were, and they used this advanced stage of their evolution to exploit us, to exploit our resources, and they did it pretty well, I would say.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But not to forget also that we also did learn a lot of things, you know. Like even when we talk about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, you know, this government, the current government talks a lot about Dr. Raja Ram Mohan Roy. And so Raja Ram Mohan Roy was who? He was a clerk in the British system, and he was a librarian rather, and he was able to study, and since he understood English, he could read a lot of British literature, and then brought in some of the Western ideas to the Indian context. So evolution of sati, child widow remarriage, and all these reforms which happened in Bengal was because of the British. So yes, so you know, so every education policy, every education system is meant to serve a system. So to look at it in isolation is not really correct. We should look at it in context and look at and make a balance sheet of it, that what were the gains and what were the losses. So I see, yes, they were if there were losses because of Macaulay's education system, there were substantial gains also.
Right.
Yes.
I'll say that in terms of the loss and in terms of the gain as well, what I feel particularly, and obviously I haven't read much, you're the genius here, but what I feel is that they initially introduced this, obviously for their benefit, but they used our findings, our mathematics, our scientists, our researchers to formulate the technological advancements that they wanted. But they were way too smart enough to do so.
That would be incorrect to say, because they were technologically much more evolved when they came to this country. We had lost our technologies somewhere in the Middle Ages.
When the Mughals came in.
Not before the Mughals even.
Oh, before the Mughals.
Before the Mughals also, we had lost our technologies and this thing. So it would be incorrect to say that, you know, that they took our system in 1800 or 1900. So they rather, you know, this information had traveled to them. There's the whole concept of zero and the Shamlov system. Traveled to Middle East, and from there it had traveled to Europe, and that's where they learned from. So they had made use of knowledge to their advantage, and we unfortunately were. In fact, the British taught us to rediscover ourselves. The modern archaeology, some basing our, you know, carbon data ratings and carbon data, all this, we learned from the British, and that's how we were able to rediscover Nalanda and Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Vikramshila. It is I'm forgetting that guy's name, Bernier or something was his name. Who in fact, it was during this time that, you know, the system of archaeological survey of India was set up. Then the British set up this system called Survey of India, which, you know, took mathematically taught us how to measure the mountains. So but then there was a British at the top, but the whole team was an Indian team. So probably they did not give much credence to the Indians who were part of the team.
Exactly.
But also we cannot take away the fact that the British were initiators of it, but Indians also participated in equal measure, I would say that.
Definitely. In terms of the mathematical findings about how to calculate the mountain height, in the Surya Siddhanta, which is thousand-year-old, I guess, if I'm not wrong, that has clear documentations that we as Indians found out the dimensions of different planets based on the trigonometrical concepts. So yes, I'll definitely agree with you on the fact that we were evolved, but we weren't smart enough to use that for our favor. And they were smart enough to take us as the slaves and the workers and use that.
More than the what you call. If you look at it, you know, more than the what you call the people who came from the Middle East or the Europeans, it were our local people, you know, the social reform movements which happened, the Buddhists and the Jainis and this thing, they rather, you know, kind of looked at our Vedic knowledge as a knowledge meant to perpetuate injustice.
Right.
So it was rather much of this knowledge was lost during these period, than during the later period.
Right.
Yes.
So there are a lot of things which are coming to my mind, but we have a very sharp time gap. So I'll come to my very last question. It's a two-part question. Please tell me a bit about the NEP and how the Indian reforms have evolved in the first education policy. So a lot of people have got different outlooks and different takes on the NEP, and just help them understand in a layman term that what actually happened from what all different reforms happened in the education system from the first education policy developed in 1968, if I'm correct, and the current NEP in 2020.
You see, all education policies are good policies as far as the document goes. The challenge of making a policy good or bad goes in its implementation. I cannot speak much for 1968 policy because I really do not have their idea, and I really have not read it in detail about it. But 1986 education policy, it has contributed on 3 or 4 counts in a big way. The first and foremost was the Navodaya Vidyalayas, which were set up. Navodaya Vidyalaya was modeled on the, we had this public schools in India, and so the government decided that we should have a residential public school, the modern Gurukul, in each district of this country. So that's how the Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas came up in each district of the country, which has contributed substantially to the strengthening the schooling system in our country. Number one. Number two, the second system was the second thing was creating the central universities across the country. The states where some states had very good universities, some states did not have that good universities. So the central government took on itself to create central universities across the states. So that's how we have this central university system, CUS, which is there in all the some states have 2 central universities, some still. So that's and where there is a uniformity in the syllabi and things like that. We have adopted from the first education policy. We have adopted a 10+2+3 system, which is in sync with the international system. So we have done that. We have added a lot of technical institutions in the private sector. We have the engineering colleges and the management colleges and such colleges. So these were the takeaways from the second education policy. Now coming to the third education policy, the current education policy, it talks a lot about skill enhancement. And you see, as the market is evolving, as I said, education is always related to market. And as the market is evolving today, you need skilled professionals.
Correct.
Like somebody like you, I do not know what degrees you have, but you are conducting this show because you have this skill.
Correct.
Right. So we talk of mass communication when we talk about area where I was, mass communication. Nobody looks for a degree. One looks for the skills. How good an anchor you can be, how good a business. And a skill doesn't mean that you don't have to be a knowledgeable person. You have to be a knowledgeable person. You may not necessarily be a degree holder, but you are a man of knowledge and you are a man of skills.
Correct.
So this is what the new education policy focuses on. But will you be able to implement it is a big question mark.
Yes.
Because there would be resistance from the existing system. There would be resistance from people, from the government, from inside the government especially, because people have enjoyed such control over our education system that they would not like to be free, of their regulations. Now, how it evolves, let's see. History will judge the education system.
Definitely. I'll put it this way that, agreeing to you, I'll say the execution of the plan is super important. They've come up with a very good plan, I'll definitely say that. It also focuses on STEM-based education as well. And the only problem which I see, and obviously I'm an outsider to the system, is that it has been introduced 1 year back. I do understand that 6 months could have been obviously invested in the medical industry because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But no proper documented execution plan is either put in the media or is put it forward.
I think it did not go anywhere for past 1 year. And that is why a very angry Mr. Narendra Modi has dropped Ramesh Pokhriyal as Education Minister and brought in one very effective colleague of his, Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, who is going to have delivered in the Petroleum Ministry and Skill Development Ministry and other places as the Education Minister of this country. And
I hope he does justice to
it does, and I think the challenge before Mr. Pradhan is to, walk the talk. There's a lot of talk about the new education policy, so let's make it walk to something.
Exactly.
Yes, Parsh, I think.
We'll be concluding the session. That's what I was about to say. Thank you so much for joining today's event, and thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule for joining us and gracing us the event. And we look forward to have you in our upcoming events as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. With that being said, it was an amazing discussion. We learned a lot from Professor Mishra. Let me take the honor to quickly invite all our dignified panelists from various countries, and I'll be introducing them one by one to the forum. So we have people joining us. All right.
Hello.
Great. So thank you all for, again, joining us for the event and being a part of the world's largest lesson on the history of education. Today, we'll be discussing some topics with you, some things which you have already been a part of, and we'll be asking you a question based on your expertise and your guidance towards different educators across the world. So with that being said, let me quickly introduce our very first speaker and panelist. From South Africa, we have Steve Sherman. Welcome, Steve. Steve is the Chief Innovation Officer of the STEM-based NGO, Learning Maths, founded in 1995. He teaches thousands of kids every week, and he's a 2020 recipient of the Global Teacher Award. He has given 2 TED Talks, and he's a MOAT certified educator, Kahoot ambassador, Microsoft Innovative Educator expert, and one of only 2 Skype master trainers in the entire South Africa. He's also a master in karate, jiu-jitsu, and those 2 more Japanese words. All right. He also has a black belt in the same. So welcome, Steve, to the forum. Since you have spent a long time in your life talking about STEM education and implementing the same in South Africa, and I see that you're doing this, and I see the Indian education system is trying to implement the same here, the STEM-based education system. What advice do you have for the Indian government based on your experience? And of course, the Indian teachers as well.
Well, thanks, Spas, for allowing me to spread the joy and the passion for STEM to the rest of the world. And I see my esteemed fellow panelists are also STEM fans, so that is, it feels good to be amongst good company. I think it's very important to notice that when you look at the NEP for India, it is quite similar to what we've got in South Africa, and I would suspect that it's quite similar to what other countries have in their educational system as well. But I think the Prof hit the nail on the head. It's about the implementation of all these grand ideas. How do we get all these schools to integrate these ideas? And I want to take a step back and ask a very unusual question. Mm-hmm. If we take a look at the way education works today, we are using content from the 18th and the 19th century that is being presented by 20th century teachers for a 21st century world. So the reality is that if we had to stop and get industry and education to communicate with each other and ask, what are going to be our needs in the next 5 to 10 years? What will industry require in terms of the workforce? What do we want as a country to do with our students so that in the next 10 to 15 years, we will have a qualified workforce? And I think the problem is that just teaching STEM without a goal or a purpose is not going to achieve the desired effect. And you of all people will know that as an entrepreneur, as someone who's involved, who works with global partners, The reality is that, you know, I can teach you to do a science experiment.
Yeah.
But if you can only replicate that science experiment and you can't learn to think outside of the box, and you don't know how to integrate AI or using coding and technology, which is something that is actually going to be needed in the next 5 to 10 years, then perhaps, and I'm being controversial here, maybe you're not building enough of the requisite skills that you're going to require in the future. So in terms of advice, I would say that, you know, industry, education, think tanks should be getting together and working towards building the economy. Interesting fact about India is that they say that there is a direct correlation between the number of STEM research students and students that have actually qualified in the STEM field and the GDP. And the higher the number of STEM graduates, the greater the impact on the GDP. And if I'm not correct, I've heard that India has an incredibly large number of students that are coming out of the STEM world, whether it be coding, engineering, science, whatever it may be, so much so that there's been an increase year upon year upon year, and that has matched the increase in the GDP for the past 5 years as well. So maybe India is on the right track. The reality is, though, who are we talking about is on the right track? Are they the students that have got access to education? Are they the students that, I mean, I know in India and South Africa and probably other parts of the world, you have the haves and the have-nots, and some people are very privileged to have access to education, and some people, unfortunately, are not. And I think that any system that you have should also take into account equity and equality and participation of all as well.
Right. So thank you so much for telling us about this very important fact, which actually directly says that Indian education system could be on the right path to success. And we could potentially be, because we have the power, we can become the superpower of the super economy of the world. Because the kind of manpower and the kind of brains that the Indian civilization has given to the world, I definitely feel that if we change the system a bit and if we give the students a direction, we can definitely succeed. So thank you so much for joining us, Stephen.
You're welcome.
Moving on, we have my dear friend, Hazel Harrington. Hazel Harrington is Australian ambassador and advisor to the US Presidential Service Center, and is a highly energetic and goal-driven multi-award winner. She's awarded amongst the top 100 most successful women in the entire world in 2021. She's the founder of a publishing company called Harrington Publications Worldwide, which is also a licensed publisher of the presidential magazine with the US Presidential Service Center. She's also a celebrity interviewer and has interviewed a lot of famous Hollywood celebrities across the globe, including my favorite, Charlie Sheen. I'd like to welcome you to the virtual stage, and I'd like to ask you a very simple question for the youngsters of our generation. Since you have developed and grown out a multinational business in a very short time span and have connected with business partners across the globe, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs which are starting now? What advice would you give to the young generation to continuously stay motivated in the race?
Yeah, thank you so much, Spash, firstly, for the kind invitation to share my knowledge with all these amazing panelists, Steve, Hakan, and Rainier. It is a pleasure being here. And to answer your question, my concern right now is the increase in cybercrime, especially where the youth are concerned. Things are changing in terms of how we do business. Everything has gone online. And my concern is that with the youth now is that they have a mentality, an attitude of they want to get rich quick. Now, the reality is that hard work pays off, persistence, and this is what we want to see with the youth. Now, I qualify in giving advice today because I've empowered more than 70,000 youth in Africa, going in there, doing business workshops and youth empowerment conferences. And I've seen it all from Africa, then coming to Australia and getting an education here. And one of the most important things that I want to advise youth today is, number one, get a mentor. We're talking about trying to get onto that global scale and make it big, But
Correct.
I wish I had actually got a mentor earlier in the earlier parts of my life, because when you get a mentor, they will help you to avoid, making mistakes that we've made. I'm a mentor as well. A mentor will help you to get to your destination faster.
Correct.
So there's a lot of wisdom in getting a mentor. The second thing is that a lot has changed in terms of how, like I said, we do business because of COVID. So now, and also due to automation, I find that the youth need to upskill and continue to keep learning, keep educating yourself. To the women, I am an advocate for the empowerment of women, and I'm passionate about women. The reason why I got into empowering youth and going into the schools, because a lot of the young ladies were getting pregnant, and we've been waylaid on their way to school. And one of the schools I went into, Africa, about 10 of the ladies were pregnant. So to the women that are watching, the youth, there's no need trying to sell your body to get rich quick. Education pays off. This is what this whole event is all about, educating yourself.
Correct.
Exactly. So when I'm talking to the youth that are listening right now, we're not only talking about the youth in India, we're talking about the youth in Africa, even the youth in Australia, that there's more to life than just attaining wealth. Success is not just about money. Hear me and hear me well, youth. We're talking about success. Success is about being successful physically, mentally, and having healthy relationships. But there's a facade that says that success is all about money. It is not. It's also about walking in your purpose and doing what you're passionate about. We have a lot of people that are leaving jobs and they're just not satisfied and they're miserable because they're doing what they're not passionate about. So back to your question, number one, get a mentor. Number two, there's no need selling your body to get rich quick. Stop getting involved in cybercrime, fraud to get rich quickly, and stick to those three things and you'll be able to succeed in life.
Perfect. That's a very thoughtful advice given to the youth, and which comes from an expert herself. So thank you so much. And also one more thing which I'd like to add to what Hazel said here is that in the current age, it's the age of technology, like she said. And there are different skills which are yet to be learned by the youngsters. Like I learned digital marketing at a very young age. So because I learned digital marketing, now I own a digital marketing company which is operating globally. So which means that if you learn a skill which is in the digital arena, you're probably on the right path. And obviously, you need a mentor for it as well. So thank you so much, Hazel, for joining us today.
Yeah, and just one more thing. I am the former advisor to the U.S. Presidential Service Center. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for joining.
All right.
Next, we have a very interesting person, I'll say, Mr. Hakun Ryan, the most interesting person I've come across at a global level, because he is a man which is involved in very, very different fields altogether. He's an artist. He writes songs. I think your video got a couple of million views as well, right? He's a spiritual healer.
6 million.
Oh, let's be precise here, 6 million. He's a spiritual healer and also a Buddha, like a monk by nature. I assume that's what it means. He holds a certificate in Sa Lung under the Venerable Tulke Lopsang, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, which is a holistic healing academy in Norway. He is president of the international charity Earth House, editor-in-chief of Poetic Genius Society, and founder of the Healing Club. He is an ordained doctor of divinity in the ULC USA. In short, he helps others ignite their light. So welcome to the event.
Thank you very much.
I have a very different question for you again. First of all, a lot of people, a lot of students right now are not taking the spiritual path. students, they don't understand. They see that this is outdated. They see that it's following the old culture. That's what I think. I understand the value of spirituality. And since you're a spiritual guy, how can spiritual learning enhance the minds and enhance the learning development of the kids of today's century? Please tell us about that.
Well, I think it's all about seeing the intersection. You know, you can put a spiritual spin on anything. It doesn't really matter what it is. You can worship your soccer club, or you can. There are people find ways to really use their spirituality, no matter if they call it spirituality or not. You don't have to go to church or a temple or whatever to. For instance, you could go to nature, which is my personal favorite, though I've been in church today, and you can feel a connection. And I think that is what it's all about. When you feel a connection, whether it's with a group or with it's like Steve, I'm also a big advocate of online, and same as with Hazel, I've been online since 1993, and you can really. Yeah, you could take that and really feel that you are connected all around. Like we're talking now, we are connected in a big hub.
Right.
Lots of people from all over the world, and that is like when you really sense that, you need to sense it. Got to feel it here. There is something sacred about that. So yes, I think though. Many people are leaving, I think, especially organized religion, because it feels too constricted. It feels as if you have to be like this or that, and all. But at the same time, it finds its paths in other ways.
I get it. So thank you so much for enlightening us and telling us about how to take on the spiritual path alongside education and how you can benefit from it. So thank you so much for joining today's event.
Yeah, and listen to music. I'm
definitely.
As I said, I'm a musician. I have a lot of music up under my artist name. I'm ancient. I'm a man, and I sometimes feel a bit ancient.
Right.
Coming from a background of social work for 20 years. So, but listening to music, creating, being an artist, really, when you're in the flow of creating something, whether it's code, like Steve. Whether it's helping other, mentoring, like Hazel, that is really about spirituality. That is about being in the flow, being here. Correct. Namaste.
Cool. Namaste. Thank you so much. Now we have Rania Lompu, who's a global educator, and she comes from Greece. She's a STEM instructor at the Greek Astronomy and Space Company, and she's also working at the Greek Ministry of Education at the Doctorate of Education, Technology and Innovation, where she writes STEM projects for Greece. Recently, she has been selected as a global icon, featured in Passion Vista magazine amongst the top 10 women entrepreneurs featured in Fortune. Oh, damn, you've got a lot of awards. And among the top 100 most successful women in business featured in an Amazon book called Global Trade Chamber. We welcome you to the event, and I'll ask you a question based on your day-to-day job, I'll say, which is to introduce innovation-based learning in Greece, if I'm correct. So please tell the teachers of India that how they can use the latest technology to introduce different STEM-based education to the Indian system of education.
Greetings from Greece. I'm very, very honored, and thank you very much for your kind invitation. Well, I'm a STEM educator, STEM instructor, and I'm trying to promote STEM vision, not only in Greece, but worldwide through my international STEM projects. Right. And here I'm working at the Directorate of Education, Technology and Innovation in the ministry, where we have launched what we call Digital School. It's a large-scale national initiative of the Greek Ministry for the modernization of school education. And the key actions of the projects concern interactive e-textbook, learning resources, the creation of interactive e-textbook for all school disciplines in primary and secondary education, That means that all textbooks are made available online in digital format. We have also a development of large number of openly usable learning objects covering a wide spectrum of areas and educational objectives for primary and secondary. And of course, we have interactive books portal and what we call the Greek National Learning Repository, which is called Photovedro. It is open to everyone, teachers, parents, students. And this Photovedro repository ecosystem includes EduVideo, hosting short-length educational videos, Photovedro hosting learning resources developed by teachers, so teachers upload the resources, and also we have the aggregator. And following the directions of 2020 Digital Agenda of Europe and the international trends, the key action lines of the Greek national policy for digital educational content are focused on the creation of reusable units of learning, promote open educational resources, improve digital infrastructure to facilitate research and access utilization of digital learning resources, and promote the active role, of course, of teachers. Recently, I'm very happy for this. It was announced by the Greek Ministry of Education that the new compulsory school program for primary school education will be introduced, the new discipline which is called Lab of Skills, which is an innovative educational program which aims at the cultivation of soft skills, life skills, skills like robotics and STEM. So I'm very happy about it as a STEM instructor. And through my participation in the Greek Astronomy Space Company, we're trying to popularize astronomy through STEM workshops, and we're organizing for students especially. I think the STEM is the future of education, and we can do a lot about it. I will try to do my best in the Greek Ministry of Education to promote this vision. I wrote a new program which is going to be launched this September about environmental education, which combines environmental awareness, STEM education, and arts about climate change.
All right. Great.
But I want to say something. It's important that we need to take care also about privacy risks, which was a very a big challenge during the COVID pandemic. So hopefully in Greece, we have a general data protection regulation of the European Union that affects many schools. And of course, we should not forget the problem of the digital divide, which is also a big problem.
Correct. So thank you so much for telling us a lot about the Greek education system and how the innovation is happening there with the technological advancements. I'll definitely take this from your message, is that if you digitalize all the content, be it videos, be it text, be it books, or be it articles, if you digitalize all of these, it'll be easily accessible to more and more people, right? So that's something which I'll say that teachers should do. And instead of completely basing the education on hard copies of these books, we should completely digitalize, and that'll help this to reach more and more people. So thank you so much. And I'd like to again thank all the 4 panelists that have joined us today for the world's largest lesson on history of education. And thank you so much. Thank you. With this, I'd like to invite another 4 panelists to the forum. These panelists will be joining us from different parts of the globe again, and we'll be having a discussion with them based on certain topics and their work life. So I welcome you all to the event. Let me quickly introduce all the people here. We have Mr. Yogesh, we have Dr. Mario, we have Ms. Sasha, and we have Dr. Priyadarshi Nayak. So I'll start with Mr. Yogesh, and we'll talk about the government policies and the government structures that are being introduced.
Hello, good evening, dear persons.
Good evening, good evening. So I'll quickly introduce you. Mr. Yogesh is a Group A teacher educator from DIET Nasik, Government of India, Government of Maharashtra. Having more than 15 years of experience in the field, Mr. Yogesh has worked for the CPD of teachers as well as the Government of Maharashtra for all of these years. He is currently appointed as the National Coordinator for the Eco Training Center, Sweden, to generate awareness about the 7 SDGs declared by the UN. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Yogesh.
Thank you.
Please tell us about the government initiatives. What is the government doing to bring out the education system? And there's a lot of noise coming ahead. I think there's someone's microphone's on. I request everyone to please turn off their microphones. Yeah, thank you. So I'd like to ask you that what is the government of Maharashtra doing to educate more and more people and to reach the education system to the larger audience?
Really, first, thank you to Spurji and Educlouds. Good evening and happy Independence Day to all my friends from India and abroad. First of all, I am very thankful to dear Spurji, CEO Educlouds, for giving me a chance to present myself here. Friends, all of you know that the current corona pandemic period was very tough for me, for you, and for the whole world, for my teachers, my students. To overcome this pandemic situation, our government of Maharashtra, State Education Department, has launched lots of qualitative initiatives for the easy access of education for all types of students and teachers. Some are the major initiatives where we increase the awareness of our Diksha platform, which is a government platform to get easy audio and visual contents for students to get their education. So we promote our Diksha. In the same way, our state government, SCRT Maharashtra, they also launched the Abhyasmala, the study materials, and it is provided through WhatsApp to their YouTube channels, through our media, our groups, that student can get the proper education during pandemic, because schools were closed, teachers were not in touch with students. In the same way, our government has also made provisions to show live lectures as Tilimili program, which is being telecasted through our DD Sayadri, the state government channels. In the same way, we have also made provisions to provide Swadhyay homework as a digital based to our students, so they can conclude their syllabus, they can conclude their weekly syllabus and get some knowledge. In the same way, we also made every Saturday as a storytelling, because it is a new technique, new skill which has to be done by our teachers. So every Saturday is being celebrated as Saturday for storytelling. In the same way, we also use every Sunday as My Sunday, My CPD. On the Sunday, we provided e-content lectures, e-content support to our teachers. That's why our teachers are now able to make the e-contents using augmented reality, virtual reality, Camtasia, lots of video maker softwares. So in the way they can make their own e-contents, and now our e-contents are being provided to our students. In the same way, with the help of our district magistrate, Honorable Surajji Mandre, we provided our e-content through all cable TV channels in our district, nearby 6 lakh households. So it was totally free, because our district magistrate and our CO ma'am, Honorable Nishaji, they both circulated education during pandemic period, and it was a free and compulsory to every student and teachers. That's why our teachers and students benefited for it. In the same way, our government and myself, I am also going to introduce, I am also doing my project telecollaboration with Indian and Bangladesh teachers and students. So with this initiative, our students and teachers, they are getting 21st century skills. They are getting what are the 17 sustainable development goals and how they are achieved. So in this way, pandemic period, our government has done their best to get lots of teaching experiences, access to our students. In short, I just want to say that our government has done very good, and all our officers, with my colleagues, our teachers, professors, our headmaster, students supported us. For all of them, I just want to conclude here that thaka nahi karti, ठोकरे गिरा नहीं करती. अगर जिद हो तो परिस्थितियां भी तुम्हें हरा नहीं सकती. Thank you, and once again, happy Independence Day to all of you. Good evening to all our friends, and thank you to dear Spurs Ji. Namaste. Bye.
Thank you so much for telling us about the different initiatives by the government of India. And I'm glad to know that the government of Maharashtra is doing a lot of different things to digitalize education. So I see the next growth rate in education could only come with digitalization. And I definitely see that the government is trying to do the same. So thank you so much for telling us that. I'd like to introduce the next panelist here. Next panelist is a very, very, very dear friend of mine, Professor Mario C. Lucero. He has served as an ambassador of many organizations in more than 50 countries and is the country head of many institutions across the globe. He holds 50 honorary doctorates from different colleges and universities abroad and has more than 100 doctorates internationally. He has been given a degree proreg as a Prince of Kutai Maluwaram Kingdom, which is in Bali, Indonesia, and a Dato Radino Sri at Belatung Kingdom. I hope I pronounced that correct. He's a blogger, principal Springfield School International, and the founder, president of LEAD Philippines, which is Leadership in Education Academy and Development. LEAD Philippines is also the international partner, education partner for this world record. And I thank him for being the partner and being a panelist and representing Philippines in this global event. For you, sir, I've got a very unique question because the exposure that you have received in the global education system, I rarely see that in any other educator. So what advice would you like to give to the educators which are trying to go global and trying to achieve new potential in the global space?
Yeah, pleasant afternoon, evening to each and everyone. Thank you very much, my dear friends, Prasar. And I'd like to greet also Filipinos out there. A pleasant evening, mabuhay. Welcome to the Pearl of the Orient Seas, the Philippines. My great advice to all educational leaders out there who would like to become global is that, number one, you have to stay connected using, of course, a lot of connections globally by allowing yourselves to be involved with many organizations, involve yourselves with prestigious educational institutions, and also you really have to have a good background, educational background. Of course,
right.
I am involved with many organizations. That's the reason why a lot of organizations out there would like to get me as their country head. It is because of the leadership skills. And leadership skills emanate from the theories that we have. Of course, we have already the 21st century leadership skills right now, and that you have to be a digital leader. A leader is able to connect with a lot of, say, programs and projects across the globe. And that our aim right now is to become globally connected, yet locally grounded. We have to really maintain our own distinct culture, our own identity as nation, but we have to embrace a lot of challenges out there. So we learn from the best practices of good leaders out there. We learn from the best resources. And with that collaboration that we're looking into or trying to connect with other people, we learn from them. And from that, I think we have to also get the best from them and try to implement it. We only have to get the best that we could apply in our country, in our organization. So I think the best advice is that we have to open ourselves for communication and open for change. I think change is inevitable. We cannot stop change, but we have to really embrace change nowadays. Especially we think that, of course, there's pandemic, but the pandemic gave us many opportunities to be connected. I was able to find, of course, Educlouds, a lot of people here across the globe, and that we learn from them. Again, we have to be, of course, stay grounded. We have to really look into our own identity as a nation, as an individual, as a leader, and look into the best things that we could find to the best leaders of the world, and would be able to at least bring the best to the community, to our country, and to the whole world. So let's educate, because through education, we'll be able to transform the world. So that would be my best advice, to stay connected with one another.
That's the best piece of advice any educator could actually get, because Dr. Mario is an expert in going and taking education to the global level. And what I'll take from his speech is that, in one simple line, stay local, take the local ideologies, but use those ideologies to go global, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us for today's event and gracing us with your presence. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Miss Sasha Kaluri. She is one of Australia's most renowned speakers, presenting to more than 150 people each year in Australia. Having experience of 23 years, she's a director of Australian Teenage Expo, which is a company where she motivates different people. She has presented to more than 1 million youngsters around the world, and she has been motivated amongst the top 50 business leaders in Australia. So we gladly welcome you to the event. And I have a very common yet not very well answered question for you. Since you're a motivational speaker and since you deliver talks to a lot of different students, there must be some common areas where the students face issues, where the students face doubts, where the students have the need to be motivated externally. If you could tell those to the teachers, which we have here, these teachers will be able to use that to inculcate in their teaching style and motivate the students directly. So please, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's great to be a part of this really groundbreaking event. So thank you so much. What I've actually found is I've been speaking, so I speak in more than 150 schools each year right across the globe, predominantly in Australia, but also US and now across Asia, and then also in New Zealand. And one thing that I've learned is that no matter where you go in the world, young people are all the same. They are facing the same issues. And especially we had these issues pre-pandemic, and now they are so much more intense during a pandemic. And Australia still currently is in lockdown right now, which is really different to what other countries in the world are experiencing. And one of the things is that young people across the globe are experiencing intense low motivation because they've had their freedom taken away from them, and they're also seeing so much negativity around the world of what's happened. And what's happened is it's taken away their ability to be able to see their own future. And one of the things that young people young people are always having these feelings, but more intensively they're experiencing this now. So what's actually happening is there is a higher increase in young people experiencing depression and anxiety as well. And from there, what's happened is because they're not able to see their own future and where they go, it is so important for them to be able to have mentors and people that they can reach out to, and teachers and adults that are able to let people know what they are experiencing too. Because what happens is, in the confines of our own home,
there's a network issue, I think.
We're not understanding. And can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yeah.
We just missed the last slide.
So what's happening is the confine of our own houses is that people are just seeing each other online, and everything can look quite glamorous from this side, and thinking that, my household is doing really well. We seem to be on top of things, but we're not exposing the craziness of each individual family and the intense highs and lows that people are experiencing. So it's very important that we actually share our own stories. It was only recently that I did a presentation at Melbourne University, and I did something where I spoke about what happens when a motivational speaker loses motivation. And it was really about being upfront and honest and saying, I am an extremely motivated person that probably would achieve more than the average person in the day, and I function on a high energy. But being locked down, for more than 18 months and losing so much of my business, homeschooling my own children, there is a limit to what a person can take, and having this negativity around them. So it was actually really important. People actually, so a lot of students actually found it really important that adults were sharing their own feelings of what was going on. And so instead of always just, that doesn't mean that we come across and talk about the doom and gloom, but there is that part of an understanding where mentors are actually saying, I'm understanding how you're feeling. This is what's happened to me. This is what I've seen from other people. One of the most important things that I think is really important about getting through a pandemic and doing everything online, and that is understanding that not one strategy just works, because this is now, when the pandemic first hit, with young people, we were giving them a whole lot of different strategies and saying, try this, try that, make sure that you exercise, make sure that you connect with people. But now this has now gone on, and we're now in the long term of our second year, and we're not seeing any end to this right now. Those strategies are now becoming very weak because we seem to be doing them. We're tired and we're exhausted. We're operating on a very low frequency and low energy. So we need to understand that everybody needs to understand where we're all coming from. And what's happened is that with young people, there is a massive increase. And I'm talking about, when I'm saying this about Australia, there's a massive increase in suicide within young people with depression and anxiety. And when I say it's an extreme increase, because their level of failure and fear of failure is so high. And so one of the things that we need to be able to get people to understand is that they are learning something that other generations have never learned. We are all learning something. So we may not be at that same academic level or that same motivation level or those same experience levels that other people have done, but they are definitely experiencing something else that is off the scale of seeing how we can actually learn and how far we can push ourselves with our own mentality. We have a really big increase in young people being either exposed to pornography, watching pornography, and actually using pornography as part of some ways that they will earn money. We have a lot of young people that have moved to Australia. We have a very high number of young people, especially from Asia, that moved to Australia, that are coming here to study, and they are living below the poverty line because they have not got jobs, and they are very, very stressed about telling their families back home in what they're experiencing, because their families have outlaid so much money for them to be able to come here. So what's really important is that people actually share their stories, and that's why seeing a motivational speaker is part of it. And it's not just about saying it's one person, because my message may not relate to everybody. I would love to be able to say, you hear one presentation from me and it's going to fix everybody, but that's an unrealistic thought. It means that you need to hear it from me. You need to hear it from you. We need to hear it, whether it be online, whether we're watching, a motivational thing on YouTube, whether we're watching a movie that's a sports movie that's motivating us on Netflix. It means that we constantly need to feed ourselves with this positivity. And that's what we're saying to young people constantly. Find bite-sized ways to keep yourself in a positive way, whether that actually be saying, today I can't actually do anything more because I can't leave the house, I can't do anything, so I'm just going to sit and watch comedy because that makes me feel good. We have to go back down to the basic levels of what makes us feel good, and understanding that failure is so for me, fail stands for first attempt in learning. And so we need to understand that in failing in everything, in something, does not mean that we can't succeed in everything. It means that we don't quit, and that we understand that we may have actually failed at this, but what we can learn from this will be a huge step that we can actually take. And that is what we need to do. And that's the most important thing that I'm saying for us to keep our young people alive, because we have such an increase in suicide amongst teenagers in Australia. I'm saying one of my most important things now is, before I was doing things that was saying, you know, for them to reach high goals, go and do different things. One of the things is I'm talking about mental health. And making sure that we stay alive and we see the positive in what's going on in us now.
Right. So I'll definitely take that as a very important piece of advice for the teachers, because there are a lot of different aspects which you covered in your speech. You covered the part about the suicidal attempts that are significantly increasing, and many multiple aspects of why the student lacks motivation. So teachers, please make a note. And I hope that this session and Sasha was confident enough to tell you that this is something which you need to inculcate in your teaching learning environment. So thank you so much for joining today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Now we have Miss Dr. Priyadarshi Nayak. Dr. Priyadarshi Nayak is a senior principal at Doon Public School. He's currently the academic head and curriculum developer of the Doon Group of Schools. He's also the research person and city coordinator of the CBSE Curriculum of India. Regional State Coordinator, NDA, Government of Maharashtra, Government of India, Dean, Commonwealth Vocational University, and yes, at last, not the least, founder and chairman of CED Foundation and Global Talk Education Foundation, which is also the education advisor for the world's largest gathering of history of education, world's largest lesson on history of education. So thank you so much for gracing us with the event. Since you are well connected with the CBSE, and since you have a demonstrated history of 25 years of experience, you must be having a very detailed understanding about the Indian education system. What advice would you be giving to the principals of the 21st century? Like what actions should they take to run the school effectively? Please, sir.
Greetings, and Sparsh, it was a wonderful initiative. Thank you for inviting me to this world event, which is believing, it's already believed that yes, it is going to reach a world record and we are going to achieve it. And my panelists, I must regards to each one of you for your wonderful views and inputs on education. When you talk about today's education system or what we need to do in the field of education as a school leader, everyone knows this pandemic has shown a lot of things, and the entire education fraternity, it may be a teacher, it may be an educator, it may be a principal, they have transformed themselves. Now, every teacher, educator, principal has become a transformed leader. In my opinion, education is the wise, hopeful, and respectful cultivation of learning, and we change the undertaken in the belief that we all should have the chance to share in life.
Correct.
Education is the process of facilitating learning, of the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, morals, beliefs, and habits. As far as our education system is concerned, the mission is not really about preparing grades for vocation, cultivating well-rounded personalities, or you can say helping individuals gain some sort of self-fulfillment. I believe our education system, Indian education system, says the new education policy which has come in 2020 during this pandemic, it says that education is one of the important tools that is applied to help young adults succeed. It also teaches us the importance of life, and also it helps us to face the challenges in life.
Correct.
So, suppose I can say, everyone knows if you teach today's students as we taught yesterday, as we have been taught in our days, we rob them by tomorrow. If we keep teaching new generation same curriculum as we did 30 years ago, if you go on with same curriculum, our knowledge would never expand or grow. It would simply stay the same. In that case, educational leaders play a very important role affecting the climate, the attitude and reputation of their schools. They are such a corner, they can say they are the learning communities which expects that everyone to grow, everyone to function. What makes a successful skill leader? I will just tell you what makes a successful leader. How do you become a truly effective as a principal? How you become a truly effective principal? How you become a truly effective leader? The understanding of importance of building community you should know. The most important or most successful school leader should follow these traits. They understand the importance of building community. They empower teachers and cultivate leadership skills. They utilize all the data resources perfectly in this techno-driven area. When we have converted ourselves to techno-savvy, which needs to utilize data and resources. They should have, and as I am having a vision and a plan. Every school leader should have a vision and a plan. As per education policy, every leader should create collaborative, inclusive, and learning environments. One more thing I can say, they should be very passionate to their work. Everyone cannot be a teacher or an educator or a principal or a school leader.
Exactly.
So they need to be passionate toward their work, and as such, they can encourage risk taking. They lead. They should be. You can say they are examples. They should set an example in front of others. They lead by example. So they persevere staying with the school for, if at all constantly. I will request every educator, every school leader, everyone, if they stay for a significant period of time, maybe 3 to 5 years, they can uplift the school standard. Because I believe unless and until we try to learn, we stay for learning, because everyone should be a lifelong learner. If they feel that they have learned everything there is nothing in the world now. So I can say that the aim of education in 3 ways. The main objective of education was to equip the students with good quality of education. The education mostly focused on the enrichment of culture, character, personality development, cultivation of knowledge, not only the marks. This should be focused by every leader. The second, when we talk about the main objective of the education during the medieval period, if you go back, the spread of knowledge, the propagation, everything, the object behind this, the era of education was to spread the principles or conventions or policies. But in the modern education, the objective of the modern education was to inculcate values in students, such as equality, secularism, education for all, environment protection. A lot of things are there. So to understand the culture as well as the people of our country, every teacher, every educator, every leader must provide a practical level, a level for every student to equip all sort of vocational education, all sort of skill education to be developed. So that sort of platform should every leader should give their, in their respective schools. So in a conclusion, I can say, in the modern era, industries and technology increasing by day. Every industry sector is looking for a person who best suits their industry. So with the ever-increasing demand for industrial sector, our current education system also needs to be upgraded. And I think during this time, many things has developed a lot. And I believe the all-round development in the students is the only criteria should be there for every educator who are always ready to make their future ready of their children. And they also teach them, lastly, I can say they should teach them how to prepare a life in any sort of, it's not only getting marks or something like that. We are preparing every individual life. I believe if at all in my life, I can make a life, a proper life, I can bring a child and make him successful in his life, that will be a great work as a school leader. With these words, I think this is what I believe that this to be done by school educators or school leaders at all.
I am out of words. I'm out of words. Thank you so much for this amazing speech. I have no words to say here. You've said everything. So amazing speech. And I'd like to say one thing here, which is the very huge impact on the education system is based on the marks, which also leads to lack of motivation eventually. And people are running after certificates. I can bet half the people that are studying or taking part in any course right now are doing for the certificate. People just do it for the sake of certificate. They do not do it for the sake of learning. Learning should be the paramount importance and not the certificate. So with that being said, I'd like to thank all of you guys for joining the event today. And I really appreciate you all blessing the Educlouds family. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Best wishes from my side.
Thank you and best wishes.
Thank you. I'd like to now invite the World Book of Records adjudicator. We are at the end of the event, and would like to invite the World Book of Records adjudicator to talk about the event, how we made the world record. And before that, I'd like to quickly introduce Ms. Corina and the World Book of Records. The World Book of Records is an international entity which is running across almost all the countries across the world. The World Book of Records certifies and promotes and recognizes work of different individuals, different organizations, which actually aim to do something different and set a world record in their books. World Book of Records has got different books for different continents and also international books as well, which they say is their golden edition and the international edition. It's based out of London, and Ms. Corina is from Romania and is an official adjudicator of the World Book of Records. I request Ms. Corina to please tell us how did the adjudication go, and did we make the world record or not?
Hello, good evening, all of you, and happy Independence Day for Indian friends.
Yeah.
And yes, tonight the record has been adjudicated, and a new world record has been made by Educlouds. I would like to congratulate Mr. Spash Garg and his team for this great event. Mr. Garg, please show the provisional certificate for the World Book of Records to the audience.
There it is. So thank you so much for adjudicating the event. Can anyone see the certificate? Great.
And the final certificate will be provided by the World Record team after verification of evidence submitted by Educlouds. Thank you very much. Wonderful work.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It really means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
So since we are at the very end of the session, I'd like to give a short thank you speech. But before I do that, I'd like to tell you all about Educlouds. I won't take much of your time. I'll just take 1 minute to be very exact. Before I do so, I'd like to show a message which we as Educlouds would like to put on to the world. If we can have the video displayed, that'll be really good. Thank you. There's a short video that we have prepared, which basically tells about the initiative that Educlouds has. It's currently being shown to you. Thank you. So the video spoke to you. I think I don't have to say a lot. I'll just say that the next upgrade in the education system will be complete digitalization, right? A digital system, which is an education system which is 100% digital, an education system which can connect people based in India to the people based in the US, which can connect the education findings that are people doing in Europe to the people doing in Philippines, which can connect the entire world on one central digital system. And just like the education system was based, it should be free. At Educlouds, we have developed a system. We're providing the world with this free system 100% free of cost. The system will not only equip the educators, it will also equip the school management and the students. We'll have a separate session where we'll have a grand launch of the system. Everything that we do, we keep in mind that the nation is benefited from it. And since majority of the companies are violating the rights, they're actually taking advantage that the parents are actually spending all of their money on the child's education. We're not the company which is trying to do that. We're trying to genuinely upgrade the education system. We're genuinely trying to digitalize the entire education system, and we do not charge money for that. We have come up with a solution. We have come up with a digital solution, which will be coming to the market very, very soon. It's the world's first and the world's only system, which is compatible enough to run any school, any college, any university online. right from their management activities to their teacher learning experience, to a live classroom, to the examination system, which is completely online with an anti-cheating portal. All of it free of cost. Imagine that. So we have developed this, and we're providing this 100% free of cost to the entire Indian market. There's something which we genuinely feel is the need of the hour, and that's why we're doing so. Now, I'd like to thank a couple of people which have been a part of this event. So obviously, I'll start with my mom, just like always. I love her. So she is the best person in the world. And because of her, I am here in front of you with this confidence. I'm speaking. I am blessed to have a mother like her. Second, I'd like to thank a couple of people which have been involved in the event. So first of all, I'd like to thank Lead Philippines, which is our international education partner. I'd like to thank Vigyan Prasar, which is a knowledge partner. I'd like to thank Google, which is a technology partner. I'd like to thank CED Foundation and Global Talks Education Foundation, which is our education advisor for the event. With that being said, I'd like to thank Manjari, which has been a very constant support and has been there with us to coordinate the entire event and help us for a smooth running of the function. And with that being said, at the last word of thanks, I'd like to thank some new people which I got introduced to through this event. So number one is Mr. Sebastian. He's an educator, and I'd like to thank him because he connected us with a lot of different people and helped us bring this initiative to a lot of people. Secondly, I'd like to thank Mr. Amritanshu. He is a scientist, and he's an astronomy person who is working with Vigyan Prasar, and he's trying to revolutionize the astronomy space. So thank you to him as well. And a big, big thank you to all the panelists that joined us today, and a huge thanks to all the audience that joined us today and graces the event. At the very end, I'd like to invite a very, very, very special guest and also a member of the Educlouds International Committee, Dr. Kanak. He's from Dubai, and I'd like to quickly introduce him. He is a distinguished NIT alumni, former NIT faculty, and is also the jury member of DQA, DHDA, and SKEA awards by the Dubai government. Sir, I'd like to invite you to the virtual platform, and you have a very special message which you gave to me when we first interacted, which is the H2P2 message. I just want you to take 2 minutes of your very precious time and give this message to the audience that we have today. Please, sir, over to you.
Yes, boss. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Good evening.
Great. First of all, congratulations to Educloud and to you on making the world records. It's my pleasure to be, partnering with people like you and personalities and the organizations like you. As you said, giving a message to all the speakers, panelists, and delegates today about H2P2, which is health, happiness, peace, and prosperity. As the educators work on educating the students on various courses and the syllabuses, meaning that they will probably be successful in their life. And I would go to the ultimate highest pedestal, which is if you want your students to be successful, or not only students, but all the stakeholders to be successful, each stakeholder must experience, improve, and achieve or reach at the highest level of health, happiness, peace, and prosperity. In the current times, no need to explain health. Health, I think everybody is clear.
Yeah, everybody is understanding that.
Health, happiness, peace, and prosperity. Health comes first. The prosperity fourth comes the last. Okay. So health, happiness, as you measure the student and the parent satisfaction, that will be the happiness part. And of course, you should not only measure happiness of students and parents, you should also measure happiness of all the stakeholders, including the shareholders, bankers, government, society, regulators, everybody, all inclusive. So that's the happiness part. And then the peace, you cannot absorb a session if the mind is not peaceful. So obviously each stakeholder, including the teachers and the students, must be at complete peace. The mind should be at completely peace, because mind is working the best when the mind is at peace to absorb the knowledge that you're imparting. And hence, since I claim to be the global ambassador of health, happiness, peace, and prosperity. I'm quite confident that Educloud will be working towards this objective, that health, happiness, peace, and prosperity is maximized not only for the students and the, you can say, schools or colleges or the educators, but for all the stakeholders. So with this, I wish all the stakeholders all the best, and I'm confident that Educloud will work towards delivering the best or the highest levels of health, happiness, peace, and prosperity to all the stakeholders. Thank you so much, and wishing all of you all the best, and best of H2P2.
P2. Thank you so much, sir, for giving the world the message of H2P2. I really love this acronym and very simple message of yours, and I'll personally try to spread it as much as I can. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Heartiest thanks and good evening, good night to all the people which attended today's event. And attendance link, certificate link will be shared to you on WhatsApp because individual organizations have joined. This event was attended by over 150 organizations from across the world. This event was attended by almost 37 countries. This event will be further streamed to multiple people across the world in the next 24 hours. As per the world record norms, we are supposed to submit evidence, which we'll do tomorrow, and we'll soon upload the final certificate, which we'll receive from the World Book of Records. Thank you again. Have a good day. Happy Independence Day. Thank you for joining.